This is reposted.
Today, we're joined by Chris Turner. He's a quick-witted comedian and jaw-dropping freestyle rapper. If you haven't heard him yet, stop the podcast. Go to christurnercomedy.com. All his social links are at the bottom of the page. As of this morning, your YouTube channel has 21 million views on it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Oh, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Larry. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? That's a lot of views.
It is a
That's
lot of views. Everybody go check them out. They're amazing.
Yeah. Not
So
all of them are positive, obviously.
Yeah. Today's topic is, or today's thought is, an amateur practices until they can do a thing right, a professional until they can't do it wrong. I think that's interesting with like what you do. You freestyle rap, you get out there, and I feel like you can never be done practicing. What does this mean to you?
I think that definitely is the case. I mean, because freestyle's not a set thing like guitar. I feel like you can practice until you can play a song perfectly, and I'm sure we're going to get guitarists being like, "No, you can never play a song perfectly." But shut up.
From Scotland?
Go back to growing your calluses. My thoughts on this are the fact that I have always been a coaster in my life, by which I mean people put mugs of tea on me. I always did just enough to get by, and like that's replicated throughout my whole educational career, like my primary school, my secondary school, which is elementary and high school for you North Americans. And then at university, like I just did the bare minimum to not get thrown out and get the degree I wanted.
Well,
I'm super proud that I nailed that.
I feel like being a coaster, getting into Oxford doesn't compute to me.
Okay, that's making me sound like a dick. But what I mean is, I wanted to go to Oxford because my parents had been like super supportive and had made sacrifices to pay for me to go to a good school, and so I did the bare minimum I could do to get into Oxford. Like I did archaeology and anthropology at Oxford, which when I applied was the easiest subject to get into Oxford with. It was a 50% acceptance rate. And when I was at interviews, I asked people, "Hey, why did you apply here?" And they were like, "Because it's the easiest one to get in." I was like, "Oh, me too. So what have you learned about it?" And they were like, "Oh no, it's just a 50-50 chance. You don't even need to learn anything." I was like, "Oh, you're the 50% that don't get in because I at least read a book." So yeah, although I coasted, I did enough to get into Oxford. And then I enjoyed it. And if I hadn't gone to Oxford, I wouldn't be a comedian, because that's where I started doing comedy. But yeah, I never was like, I never wanted to master things. I wanted to be able to seem like I could do them. And I think that's probably the same with me in comedy. Like I don't work hard enough as a comedic writer to be the best comedian. But with freestyle, because I started doing it accidentally, like I didn't realize freestyling was a valuable skill. I mean, it's not a valuable skill, but I got good at it without realizing. I thought it was just a game, in the same way that like you get good at video games because they're fun, right? I'm not trying to master a game. I do because it's the thing I spend all my time playing. So those are my thoughts.
Chris, for the 21 million people that have not watched your video, you are unbelievable in what you do, in your ability to take and rap about objects. I've watched your videos. It's incredible. But what's even more incredible is your theory behind why anybody could do it. And I love the one thing you say, that it's Zen. Like if you're just in the present, your brain will put things together. What have you felt like? How can your brain, is it just giving your brain a little bit of peace to be able to have room to be able to think?
Yeah, so it's interesting to bring up Zen, because I'm not a spiritual and I'm not a meditative person. And when I have done meditation, I used to do Taekwondo, and there've been some meditation classes near where I live. And I've always found them pointless, because they're like, right, we're going to spend this hour clearing our brain. And I'm like, oh, you can't just do that, right? Like, and my wife always complains. She's like, it takes me hours to get to bed. I'm just replaying all these things that happen in the day in my head. And I'm like, wait, you don't just tell your brain to stop thinking? And so somehow it's this thing that I can do where I'm like, I'm going on stage now. I will clear my brain. Which I'm, super crazy that I can do that. And I'm really lucky. But yeah, I think that if you can tap into your subconscious, and this isn't me being all like Bradley Cooper, Unlimited or whatever that film was called, Limitless. That's an example. When I think, what's the name of the Bradley Cooper film? I'm like, oh, Unlimited. And then as soon as I've got that out of my head, it doesn't matter what it's called. And then my brain's like, oh, by the way, it's called Limitless. Boom. So when your brain is clear, your brain has space to put the things in. And so what I say with freestyling is, yeah, just let your brain panic. Panic is the wrong word because panic sounds negative, but it's adrenaline. It's be like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to rhyme now. And the only reason people can't rhyme is because they're trying to find a rhyme. Whereas if you're like, just when my wife is rapping to herself and she doesn't know I'm listening, she's a great rapper. If I'm like rap about anchovies, she'd suck. But if she's just making a sandwich and she's rapping about mayonnaise, then it'd be really good. And that, I think, is the same for everyone. So yeah, it is a weird kind of Zen thing. And that explains why if you ever go to a Buddhist monastery, they're always just dropping sick beats, you know?
So bring it back to the quote then. Like, you're always doing live streams, and I feel like you're always practicing, or maybe you're just performing. Your freestyle is like, I would consider you professional at it. Like, I've never seen anyone come close to being able to do it at your level. Do you do it because it's fun? Do you do it because you want to be better? Do you do it because it grows your career?
So I don't practice. I just perform. People are always like, it must take hours of practice. I'm like, oh no, I did that when I was 12, like 12 to 18, I was practicing because I never performed. I just rapped it. And like, so for 6 years I was just rapping. And then
where's your vocabulary come from? Is that from coasting through primary school?
That's from reading. Well, like primary school, I was reading, you know, one thing I liked was also being smart. And so I wanted to be the 7-year-old that was reading the books meant for 12-year-olds and stuff. And when I was like 10, I did this test and they were like, you have the intelligence of a 16-year-old. And I was like, yeah. And all the 16-year-olds were like, yeah, but we can have sex. And I was like, boo. So my vocabulary comes from reading. Someone was asking me this, like, how do you learn stuff? And I'm like, well, like learning, if you don't know something, you just look it up. So whenever I encounter something, I just Google it. And I'm like, oh, cool, now I know what that is.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts and stuff. And people, you know, if you're reading a book, read a book with a dictionary. Like, read books where you don't understand all the words. And that's not a fun way to read a book. Like, Cormac McCarthy is great, but it's a slog because you're like, what are all these Spanish words? Why are you talking in Spanish? Why are there no subtitles in this book?
Subtitles.
Yeah, you just be open and inquisitive. And I mean, I'm coming from a position of a very privileged educational upbringing where my parents read to me, and my parents, any extracurricular activity I wanted to do would make sure I could do that. And I'm super grateful for that. And it's just, yeah, there's a George Saunders quote about being, it's from an essay he wrote about Dubai, which is really cool because in my head, I'm like, Dubai sounds shit. And then you listen to the George Saunders essay or read it, and you're like, oh, Dubai sounds like the best. And it's about like remaining open. So open it hurts. And he even says when he says it, like, oh, it sounds grandiose that he says this because he thinks it when he's on a plane about to fall asleep. Maybe you should do that in your show. You should do the George Saunders curious and openness quote. But yeah, always be learning. Even if you're like, I don't think that, oh, I can rap about anything. I can rap about anything, but I don't think I know about everything. Therefore, every fact I learn, I'm like, oh, one day someone's going to say, hey, rap about this suggestion. And I'll go, oh, I can rap about that. And they'll be like, how did you know that? And that's the thing about brain emptiness. I won't actively remember it. You can't ask me to tell you things now that I know. But when my brain is empty and I'm panicking, that's when it will give me the info.
I like that. So you're basically telling Larry that after the show, he should go read to his 3 kids.
Oh, you definitely, all you should be doing is reading to kids. There's some charity called like the Million Words Project, which is like about improving literacy in like, you know, kind of less privileged kids. And really it's about the fact that like so many families don't have books because a book is an expense. Why do you need a book? Like, but if you read books, like, kids can speak better, they learn more words. Like, my 3-year-old nephew's hanging out with us at the moment, and I love that when I say a word he doesn't know, he'll go, what does that mean? And some people are like, oh, it's annoying because then kids learn bad words. But, you know, yesterday I said the word fecund, and he was like, what does fecund mean? And I'm like, oh, well, it's particularly to do with the fertility of a womb, but it can also be a field. And he's like, yeah. And luckily he hasn't said it yet, because I think a kid walking around saying fecund is pretty weird.
Hey, Chris, I used to know this guy that was able to like eat a goldfish and then be able to regurgitate it back up. But then every time he went somewhere, everybody always wanted him to regurgitate the fish. Do you ever get sick of this amazing ability that you like? Do you ever just walk in a room and be like, hey, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it today. I'm not rhyming.
My friends and family don't ask me to do it because they'd be so tired of it. And my wife, if I'm rapping or singing, which I do a lot because I have a cat, then she'll be like, oh, like why are you singing? But I was at like a kind of coffee morning in the village yesterday because I live in LA, but I'm currently in the Rocky Mountains because quarantine is a sensible thing to do. And so we had a socially distanced coffee morning. And someone was like, oh, this is Chris. You don't know, he's a rapper. Chris, would you do a show for us? And I was just like, no. Like, that's a weird thing. Because people go, oh, this would be really cool. And I'm like, from my perspective, and this isn't like I don't work for free because I'm very happy to just do fun little raps. But it's that thing of like, everybody stop your conversation and watch me. So, yeah, people ask it sometimes. And I like doing it. Like I'm very lucky that this whole lockdown I've been able to keep doing it, like Zoom calls and things like that. But yeah, it's not like I walk in and was like, the rapper's here, party time.
I love it. Thanks again for joining us today, guys. Go to christurnercomedy.com. If you have an idea you'd like us to further explore, please reach out. You can find us at Reposted Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I'm Andrew Keller for Chris Turner and Larry Roberts saying thanks for stopping by.